All right, let's get started. So welcome everyone here. I'm going to tell you what is new from AssistiveWare this year. I'm David Niemeyer. I'm the founder and CEO of AssistiveWare. And today I want to tell you a little bit about our mission, because that's a very important reason for the things we do. I'll tell you a little bit about 2 new AEC apps we created over the last year. I'll give you an update on some of our other app updates, and I will share with you a little bit about our advocacy work. So our mission is to make AEC an effective and accepted means of communication. And everything we do really revolves around this social mission. It is what has led us to create Proloquo to Go over 13 years ago. And it's also what has led us to create 2 new AEC apps in the last year, because we really want to provide more effective AEC, especially to people who are new to AEC. So we created 2 new AEC apps. I'll share a little bit more about those and why we made them. So Proloquo to Go has been around for over a decade, and in many ways it has been a big success. It's still today the most popular AEC app out there. It has an amazing App Store rating of 4.7 out of 5, and it really helped set up that movement of democratizing access to high-tech AEC by making it available on consumer devices rather than expensive dedicated devices. So those are all good things. But what we've found in practice is that a lot of the flexibility and the configurability we offered with Proloquo to Go wasn't always used the way we intended it. And what we're seeing is that about 80% of our users are not following our recommended setup. And that's a problem because most of those people would actually benefit from the recommended setup. Instead, what we see is that they reduce the grid size to a handful of buttons on the screen, and that is great if you need that because of vision or fine motor disabilities, not so great if you don't have those challenges. And the other thing we see is that, like most AEC apps, Proloquo to Go is mostly used for requesting. And there is a lot more to do in terms of communication than just requesting. And looking at the anonymous language use data we collect, obviously with consent, we were also finding that not a lot of communication is happening. The average Proloquo to Go user speaks about 100 words a day. That's not an awful lot. You've probably spoken more than 100 words in the last few minutes. What we also see is that if we look at the range of language, the amount of vocabulary that's being generated, we see a very small expressive vocabulary. And we see that people are not using it every day. They may only use it during the week at school, but not in the weekend or during the holidays. So those are all things that made us unhappy. And so a few years before the pandemic, we made a radical decision to take a step back, reflect, and start over. We wanted to start with a clean slate and build something new, not being held back by the boundaries of an existing product. And when the pandemic hit, we spent our time focused on creating these new apps. And we'd already, years before that, started with research, which was the foundation for these new products. We also were able to use the latest technologies, the latest insights from science, etc. And one of the things we try to do is to address some of the problems that we often see families and teachers cope with. And one of the things is very often people are really overwhelmed by AEC. They feel alone on their AEC journey. They may not get the support from school, or school may not get the buy-in from family, and we see people struggling with the lack of knowledge. And then people find out they have to model, but it's never made really clear what to model, when and how. And we really wanted to address those problems. If we look at schools, we see that people are really getting frustrated because there are these different page sets on the same app, or there are these different products in the classroom. And then very often there's really a big lack of academic vocabulary. So those are some of the things that we really wanted to address. So we built these 2 new apps. There is Proloquo, which is a next generation AEC app. I'll tell you a bit more about that. And there's a companion app called Proloquo Coach, which is an AEC best practice coach intended for the communication partners so that they can improve their communication partner skills. So what is unique about these products? So first of all, it's more a service rather than a product. It's available on iPad and on iPhone, and you can either get an App Store subscription as an individual, or you can get 1 to 5 year licenses, which is intended for schools or funding and aligns with typical funding cycles. What's also different is that you only pay for the AAC user. Everyone around the AAC user gets free access. So if I buy this for my child, I can give free access to my wife, to the neighbor if the child spends a lot of time there, to grandma, to my private SLP, to my school SLP, to the teacher, everyone around that AAC user, so that they can support the AAC user with modeling with the vocabulary that that AAC user uses. And then we have Proloquo Coach, which provides the AAC best practice insights and information in small, easy to digest chunks. And there's learn content, there's practice contents, and there are small little quizzes to reflect. And we also provide around-the-clock chat support in Proloquo Coach. So at any time you can ask a question to our team, and within a few hours you'll have an answer. And together Proloquo Coach and Proloquo, which I'll tell you more about now, make up this service. So Proloquo, unlike most AAC apps are designed by experts and really for experts. If you know what to do with them, you can be very successful with those robust AAC apps. If you don't know how to use them, you either give up early or you start modifying things until it's not usable anymore. So Proloquo instead is designed so that it's easy to learn and use for everyone. And it also has a new vocabulary which we call crescendo evolution. And that vocabulary offers only a single grid size, so that people cannot reduce the amount of words when there's no need for that. It is fully motor planned. It has a fixed base vocabulary. You cannot hide words, not remove words, not delete words, but you can expand it with additional words if you want. It's extremely efficient, and even though it has a smaller grid size than Proloquo to Go, to reduce the overwhelm that people often experience, it's actually just as efficient. It's also very inclusive and appropriate for all ages, because we know that a 2-year-old at one point will be a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 20-year-old. And we don't want people to have to change systems and relearn motor patterns. It has over 12,000 words in there, which is roughly 3 times as many words as any other AAC system out there. It includes about 3 times as much academic vocabulary, and it supports literacy development and vocabulary expansion. I'll show you a little bit more about that later. So how does it relate to Proloquo to Go? So Proloquo to Go, I think, is like a Swiss Army knife. It's a robust vocabulary. You can do it almost anything you want with it, but you can also hurt yourself if you don't know what you're doing. Proloquo instead is something that can be not messed up or broken. It's really designed to provide the guardrails and the scaffolding so that anyone can be successful with AAC. So generally speaking, we would advise Proloquo to Go for people with fine motor and vision disabilities, or who need AAC for other languages like bilingual English-Spanish support. Whereas Proloquo and Proloquo Coach is probably the best choice for all those English AAC users that do not have that fine motor or vision, those fine motor or vision issues. And we are keeping both programs around because they serve different needs, but we expect in practice that 95% of the people who today would get Proloquo to Go would probably be better off with Proloquo. Now tomorrow we have a session at 8:30 where we go much more in depth than I can do today to explain you more, share more, and also discuss some of the challenges that we're trying to address with these new products. You can also come and visit us at the booth outside the exhibit hall, talk to our team, and find out how you can get a free license for these apps. Because any SLP, OT, SLP student, SLPA can get a free license. Now before I show you a little bit more of these apps, I'll go through some other updates. So several of our apps have been updated over the last year. We've added more voices. There are new child voices, for example, of African American English child voices, and also 2 other new American English child voices. There are new adult voices, including African American English, and there are also many new voices in other languages. Another big update was to Apple Watch. We've now made it possible to have Proloquo to Go or Proloquo for Text right on the homepage of your Apple Watch, so that on the watch face you can immediately open it from there. You can also now select the voice that you want to use inside the Apple Watch. And for all our apps, we've updated the number of symbols available in the apps. Now, a couple of years ago, we decided that as a part of our mission, if we wanted to see people be successful, we should do more than try to make a better AAC system. We needed to also support people so that AAC is more accepted in society. And one of the advocacy products we did was create a documentary called This Is Not About Me, which is about a young autistic woman who up till her 18th did not have access to AAC and was not supported by teachers to actually learn anything. At 18, she found a teacher who actually believed in her, and she got access to AAC. Now she's finished not only a bachelor's, but a master's, and is speaking at this conference. It's available on iTunes, Apple TV, Google Play. You can do group screenings, and all the revenue of this documentary goes to non-profit organizations that support people like her. We also do AAC awareness campaigns. Last year we did one where we have these posters that challenge assumptions about people who cannot speak. You can find more in the blog and actually download the poster there. One of the other things we did is we find that a lot of people talk about AAC and about AAC users in ways that AAC users do not appreciate. And so we did a survey where we asked about 119 different terms, what people liked, didn't like, what they knew, didn't know. And I very much encourage you to have a look at the blog post that covers the perspective of AAC users. We're currently working on a follow-up where we also look at the differences between those perspectives and those of other groups. So that gives you a very quick overview of some of the stuff we've been working on. Since I have a few more minutes, I'll now hook up my iPad. Unless there are any questions at this point. No? All right. So iPad is on the screen. For some reason, the audio output doesn't work with the HDMI, so you won't hear it speak, but you can see what happens. So the new vocabulary is structured from left to right with different tabs, pronouns and other words to start a sentence, helper verbs, abstract verbs and sensing verbs over here, action verbs, location-related words, describing, questions, chat, and fringe. And I'll show you a few little glimpses of how this is different. So and you see here at the top the static core, that's always available wherever I am in the vocabulary. Now let's say I want to tell you what I'd like to have. I could say I want, and on the right side here you see there are additional options. So I could say crave or desire or dream or hope or long instead of just saying want. Similarly, if I hit a word like good, I could say amazing or awesome. And if you start using those kind of words, the communication partners are going to respond in a very different way to you than if you always say just good. Now you might wonder, what if someone cannot read? Well, you can tap on each of these choices and listen to them and make the choice you want. They're alphabetic, the order is fixed, you can look at the length of the words, and so even if you cannot yet read, you can start using this and you get an interest in learning more about reading and writing because you are experiencing the benefit of having access to this. It also works for words like, for example, if I go to baby, I have access to things like infancy, babyhood. And I always have direct access also here on the very right to the inflections. And so if I go to go, I can go to drive or fly, and I can also use go, goes, went, going, etc. It's a very inclusive vocabulary. So for example, I have the plural they, but I also have the singular they over here. In my people, I can talk about identity, about disability, and it has this rich set of academic vocabulary about literacy, math, science, etc. And so it's an extremely rich vocabulary, and it really gives you access to all those words and not just the boring words like want and good and do. which really gives you a lot of power. There's, of course, access to the keyboard. And then if I go into my personalization mode, which is now syncing to see if there was someone else on my team who made changes, then here I can expand my team and invite additional members to my team. I can decide whether they are admins so that they can also invite people, or whether they're viewers that can only use the vocabulary, or editors where they can add additional words. If I want to add a word, for example, I'm in school and I'd like to add the word board, I just type the word board here, and the app asks me, what do you mean by board? Do I mean a blackboard or a chalkboard with these related words? Or are we really talking about the school board with related words like commission and council, or about a communication board, or boarding a plane, or boarding up a window, or a room and board, or a plank, or a game board? All those different options are automatically presented to me so that I can take the relevant word. The other thing is, I mentioned that it was motor planned, so there is no back button. You always go forward. So if I want to go to donkey, I tap here, animals, mammals, donkey. If I were over here, it would still be exactly the same pattern to go there. And if I were in fish, I don't go back to animals, I again follow the same path. And so every word is only in one location in the symbol-based grid, except if there are multiple meanings of the word. So for example, if you take the word bank, most people think of bank as the place where you put your money, but there's also the river bank. Those are entirely different concepts. They happen to have the same word associated with them, but for most people you would expect them in a different folder, and you would, especially as you're just learning language, not even associate them together. So in those cases we'll have both words in different places. They'll have a different symbol, they'll have a set of related words. I always have access to and the, and I can tap here to immediately have access to the conjunctions. So that's a very quick run through the new Proloquo app. Come to our session tomorrow morning at 8:30 or to our booth if you want to explore this a little deeper, or if you have any questions. And I think there's time for 1 or 2 questions at most right now. So does anyone have a question? All right, no questions? Well then I thank you for this short demonstration and hope to see you tomorrow morning in our session or at our booth. Thank you.